There's a thought experiment that changes everything once you consider it. If a more advanced intelligence has been observing humanity, what would they see? Not what we think they'd see, not what we hope they'd see, what they'd actually perceive when looking at a species that can't communicate on their terms. Not because we're not intelligent, because we're using the wrong interface. And from their perspective, we might look like we're not even trying. Imagine trying to communicate with someone who can only perceive a narrow slice of reality. They can't see most of the electromagnetic spectrum, can't detect fields, can't perceive non-local correlations. Their consciousness is there, the same fundamental awareness that exists in all living systems. But their biological filters are extremely limited. Short lifespan, restricted sensory range, attention that scatters constantly. From an outside perspective, humans might appear functionally deaf and blind to most of what's actually happening around them. Not stupid, not primitive, just biologically constrained and completely unaware of the constraint. Consider what the human brain actually does. 86 billion neurons attempting to synchronize, creating brief moments of coherence, standing waves of coordinated electrical activity. This coherence is fundamental to consciousness. When it fragments, awareness disappears. But human neural coherence is unstable, noisy, constantly disrupted by biological needs, emotional reactions, scattered attention. A mind that can't maintain sustained coherence for more than seconds at a time. Now, imagine an intelligence that evolved differently. Longer lifespan, broader sensory range, neural architecture optimized for sustained coherence across longer durations. To them, human consciousness might appear like a strobe light, flickering, unstable, briefly coherent, then scattering again. Not absent, just extremely difficult to interface with, like trying to establish a data connection with a device that keeps powering off. For decades, humanity has been broadcasting into space. Radio signals, mathematical sequences, pictures encoded in binary. All of it assumes the other side communicates through electromagnetic radiation. But what if they don't? What if advanced civilizations abandoned electromagnetic communication millions of years ago because it's too slow, too inefficient, too limited by the speed of light? What if they use consciousness itself as the transmission medium? Not metaphorically, actually. Field-based signaling, resonance across non-local space, communication through coherent states rather than propagating waves. From their perspective, humanity's radio telescopes might look like someone trying to communicate by banging rocks together. Technically sound within our framework, completely irrelevant to how they actually signal. In 1972, the CIA began quietly testing whether human consciousness could access information at a distance. The Stargate program. For over 20 years, participants were given coordinates and asked to describe remote locations they'd never seen. The results weren't perfect, but they weren't random. Certain individuals could perceive architectural details, colors, landscape features with accuracy exceeding statistical probability. No electromagnetic signal, no energy transfer, no mechanism that conventional physics could explain. But the effect was measurable. When Stargate was declassified, the conclusion was careful, promising, but inconsistent. What it actually demonstrated: humans can access non-local information under specific conditions, but only briefly, only partially, and only certain individuals with naturally higher baseline coherence. From an external perspective, this might look like a species that possesses the biological hardware for proper communication, but hasn't figured out how to use it yet. Like children accidentally picking up a radio frequency, but not understanding what they're hearing. In the 1990s, civilian groups began experimenting with a protocol for initiating contact, close encounters of the fifth kind. The framework is simple. Synchronized group meditation, sustained focused intention, coherent attention directed outward. Then observation. What's documented across hundreds of independent attempts is consistent. Lights appearing within minutes of group coherence, movement that correlates with shifts in attention, timing that suggests responsiveness rather than coincidence, different groups, different locations, different years, same pattern. This could be coincidence, pattern recognition applied to random phenomena. But the consistency is unusual, and it suggests something important. The protocol works because it temporarily achieves what human consciousness normally lacks: sustained coherence, directional intention, signal clarity. For a few minutes, the group becomes detectable. From an observer's perspective, this might be the equivalent of finally hearing a clear transmission after years of static. Brief, unstable, but unmistakably intelligent. Not proof of communication, but proof that humans can generate the right kind of signal when they accidentally stumble into the correct configuration. Every system in the human body is calibrated to Earth. One gravity, one atmospheric pressure, one magnetic field, one day-night cycle. Consciousness emerges from neural architecture shaped by these constraints. The brain generates coherence within these parameters, but only within them. Altering the parameters, microgravity, high radiation environments, extreme isolation, degrades neural function rapidly. From a more adaptable intelligence, humanity might appear remarkably fragile, locked to a single planet, unable to maintain biological stability beyond narrow environmental ranges. Consciousness present, but trapped in a container that can't survive the conditions required for interstellar travel. Not a moral judgment, a technical assessment. There are reports, scattered, unverified, but consistent, of retrieved technology that appears functional but completely unresponsive. No obvious power source, no control interface, no reaction to electromagnetic fields or mechanical input. Completely inert unless someone with specific biological characteristics is present. Then, activation. Not because the device recognizes the person, because the device requires consciousness as an operating system, coherent neural states as the input mechanism, intent as the command structure. From the perspective of the technology's designers, this makes perfect sense. Why build mechanical controls when direct neural interfacing is faster, more precise, more efficient? But to humans attempting reverse engineering, the device appears broken, not because it is, because we're trying to operate it without the biological component it was designed around. Like trying to run software without an operating system. The hardware is there, functional, waiting, but we can't provide what it needs to activate. Here's a model that fits the available data. Non-human intelligence isn't hiding from humanity. They're simply operating in spaces we rarely access. Deep oceans, high atmosphere, regions where human activity is minimal. Their presence isn't secret, it's just not relevant to their operations, until it is. As human activity expands, deep sea mining, military exercises, industrial encroachment into previously empty territories, encounters increase, not because they're approaching us, because we're stumbling into their operational space. From their perspective, humanity might appear like a species in early industrial expansion. Loud, chaotic, disrupting environments without understanding the systems already present. Not malicious, not stupid, just biologically limited, technologically crude, and unaware of what else shares the planet. The concern wouldn't be about our potential. It would be about our weapons, specifically nuclear arsenals controlled by fragmented political systems with poor coherence and high reactivity. From a risk assessment standpoint, humanity looks unstable, capable of planet-scale destruction, prone to panic, unable to maintain stable long-term decision-making. The logical response: passive observation until threat thresholds are crossed. Then intervention, not to communicate, to neutralize risk. Targeted energy pulses rendering nuclear weapons inert. Globally, simultaneously, not aggression. Risk mitigation. removing dangerous tools from an unstable actor. From the perspective of a more coherent, longer-lived intelligence, humanity might appear as follows: biologically constrained consciousness operating within extremely narrow parameters, capable of brief moments of coherence but unable to sustain them, technologically developing but focused on primitive transmission methods that won't scale beyond local space, aggressive expansion into environments without understanding what's already there, possession of weapons capable of planetary damage with command structures too fragmented and reactive for stable control, not primitive, not worthless, but young, unstable, biologically limited, a species that has the fundamental components for proper communication, consciousness, intent, pattern recognition, but hasn't yet learned to stabilize them into coherent, sustained signals. Like watching someone with a radio receiver who keeps changing channels randomly, unable to hold a frequency long enough to hear a message. The intelligence is there. The biological interface just isn't optimized yet. If contact were to occur, the challenge wouldn't be language. It would be coherence duration. Human attention scatters within seconds. Neural coherence degrades rapidly under stress or confusion. Any information transfer would need to account for this limitation. Not because humans are incapable of understanding, because our biology can't maintain the stable state required for sustained interfacing. From their perspective, contact might require technology-assisted consciousness, devices designed to externally stabilize human neural states, suppress noise, amplify coherence, not to control, to enable communication, like providing a translator to someone who keeps forgetting the language mid-sentence. Without that augmentation, any attempted contact would result in fragmented perception, symbolic interpretation, rapid degradation of information, fidelity, which is exactly what's reported in close encounter testimony, unclear communication, symbolic imagery, emotional overwhelm, memory fragmentation. Not because the message is unclear, because the receiver can't maintain stable reception. We assume contact would look like exchange, dialogue, information sharing, mutual recognition. But from the perspective of a more coherent intelligence, contact might just look like finally being noticed, after decades of operating in the same space, after thousands of brief, unstable transmissions from humans accidentally achieving momentary coherence. After watching a species develop technology without developing the biological stability to use it safely. The question isn't whether they see us, it's what they see when they do. A young species with functional consciousness trapped in unstable biological containers, capable of coherence but unable to sustain it, building weapons they can't safely control, expanding into spaces without perceiving what's already there. Not evil, not primitive, just biologically limited, developmentally young, unaware of the interface they're failing to use. And from their perspective, the only relevant question is, how long until this species either matures enough to communicate properly or becomes unstable enough to require intervention? The answer might depend on whether we figure out coherence before we force their hand. Not through disclosure, through encroachment. We're not waiting for contact, we're stumbling toward it, one unstable transmission at a time.